When I went to rehab, I had two primary goals. One was to quit drinking. The two was to get back in shape. So I wanted to get my mind right and my body right. But when I'm at rehab, there's all these donuts and all these cakes and all this stuff that they were offering. So it was a little bit of a struggle. Maybe I wasn't drinking and using drugs while I was in rehab, but early on, instead of getting in better shape, I was getting in worse. So there was this moment in there when this guy that I really respected, he looks at me and he said, "Man, you're really letting yourself go. You can say no to those donuts." And he didn't say it to be cruel. He was, he said it like he was observing the weather, just matter of fact, just stating the facts. And I smiled and nodded and said something like, "Yeah, it's a struggle. I'm working on it." But inside, that sentence played on like a freaking broken record for 3 weeks. Every time I looked in the mirror, I heard his voice. Every time I struggled to get out of the bed, there he was. "What happened to you?" Here's what I didn't understand back then, and that's what I want to talk to you all about today. When you hand someone else the pen to write your story, you will spend your entire life trying to edit a draft you didn't author. And my friend, that is a war you can't win. So today, I'm going to walk you through something that I had to learn, the hard way, so to speak, how to handle the opinions of other people without letting them become the truth about who you are. How to take in what's useful, discard what's poison, and then build something that most men never build, which is a sense of self-worth that doesn't need anyone else to sign. So stay with me. So let's get honest about something first. The reason other people's opinions hit you or me so hard isn't because you're weak. It's because you're human. The reason for this, for most of human history, being rejected by your tribe or the people in it meant death. Like literally, if your group kicked you out, you didn't eat, you didn't survive. So your brain, that same brain that tries to talk you out of getting up in the morning, it's wired to care deeply about what other people think of you. It treats social rejection like a physical threat. Now, that wiring made sense when we were hunting in packs and we needed the tribe to survive. But here's the problem, my friend. That same wiring is still running the show. And now your brain treats every coworker or friend side eye with the same urgency as being exiled from a village. And I know this because I lived it. When I went from being a Marine Corps officer, someone who commanded troops, to going and standing behind a counter, at a gas station making $16 an hour, you better believe I felt every glance. Every customer who didn't know my name, every time someone looked at me like I was just another guy behind the register, man, my ego's screaming, "They think you're nothing now. They think you're all washed up. They're wondering what the hell happened to you." But some of them, I'm sure they were thinking that. But here's the more important thing. That was never the real problem. The real problem is that I agreed with them. See, you can survive someone else's bad opinion of you, but what you can't survive is making their opinion your own. That's the difference. And that's where most men get it wrong. So let me give you some practical advice, because I'm not going to give you philosophy that sounds good now, but you don't do anything with it. I want you to do something next time someone else's opinion lands on you and starts digging in. I want you to run it through what I call the source filter. 3 questions here, okay? Do they know me? Not, do they know my name? Do they actually know me? Have they seen me in my worst moments and at my best moments? Have they watched me struggle and show up anyway? Because here's the thing. Most people who have opinions about your life have never sat in your, shoes or walked in your shoes. They've never been with you when you've, gone through some hardships or whatever that is. They've never been front row to your life. They don't know anything about you. So if someone like that, if they're really trying to have an opinion of you, it's like the same thing of someone trying to have an opinion or give a review of a movie that they've never watched. And you don't take movie reviews seriously from people who walked in during the credits, would you? No. So like question 2, do they want what I want? This one changed everything for me. Is the person that's giving me this criticism or opinion living a life that I actually want? Or in this case, are they physically fit in such a way that what they're saying to me should even matter? Or are they just comfortable criticizing from the bleachers? I used to take criticism from people whose lives I wouldn't freaking trade for anything. I mean, think about that. I'm letting people who have never done anything worthwhile or never done anything hard tell me that I wasn't doing hard things right. Or in this particular instance, I'm letting a guy bag on me for putting on a few pounds, but this dude can't see his toes, respectfully saying, you know, I do care about the guy. I mean, that's just insane. You know, so the last question, question 3, is what they're saying feedback or is it just noise? This is the most important distinction you will ever learn to make, my friend. Feedback has a direction, okay? It points somewhere. Noise, that just makes you feel bad. Feedback says something like, hey, I've noticed that you've been inconsistent with your workouts. You know, what's going on, man? What's getting in your way? Like, you know, something like that. Noise sounds like you never follow through with anything. Maybe you should put the donuts down. Your belly's eating big. Feedback is specific. Noise is vague. Feedback you can use. Noise you can only absorb. And here's the rule that saved me. If it's noise, I give 0 fucks about it. It gets 0 time in my mental landscape. No energy, boom, out the door. I don't debate it. I don't ruminate on it. I don't defend against it. I don't replay it. I just let it pass in through one ear, like static on a radio station, and then turn it to the next. That's it. But I'm going to also take you to a deeper level on this, because this is where the advice gets real. Sometimes the most damaging opinion you're dealing with isn't even theirs. It's yours wearing their face. But let me explain what I mean. When I was deep in my addiction, I already believed I was worthless. I already had convicted myself. So when someone said something that matched that belief, you know, or when someone said something that matched the belief, like you let yourself go, you know, what happened was, is it already confirmed a thing, a certain way I already felt about myself, you know, and I partially believed it and feared that it might be true. And that, my friend, is the real prison. It's not their words. The prison is the part of you that hears those words and says, yeah, they're right. So here's the mirror test. Next time someone's opinion is eaten at you, I want you to ask yourself, would this have landed and bothered me if I hadn't already believed some version of it? You know, I already knew I wasn't working out the way I should be. I know the version of fitness I could be in. And so the dude wasn't wrong, but it's like, you know, I wasn't at my final destination. I was just at a stopping point, you know, so his words hurt. So in those circumstances, you got to really just assess it. Because if the answer is no, if you really believe what they're saying, then you wouldn't even have flinched, you know, then you wouldn't even defend yourself against it. You wouldn't find yourself in this mental loop, wasting time thinking about something that's not relevant. So really what I'm trying to say is the work behind all this is healing that little wound that they happen to touch. I happen to be insecure about my looks, and that dude touched that wound. But you see, a confident man doesn't argue with criticism that doesn't fit. He hears it, checks it against what he knows to be true, and if it doesn't match, he moves on. No energy spent, no loop, no 3-week replay cycles. They're not living in your head rent-free. And the reason you can't let go of what they said is often because somewhere deep inside you, you're not sure that they're wrong. And that's not a criticism problem. That's really a self-belief or self-trust problem. But you see, that is fixable. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do you fix it? Well, my friend, I'm going to give you something that's practical and tactical, because I know when you're in the middle of it, when someone just said something and it's burning a hole in your ass, you don't need freaking some theory. You need a process. So here's what I've learned to do. I call it the 24-hour rule. When someone's opinion hits me hard, a comment, a criticism, even just a look that landed wrong, I give myself permission to feel it for 24 hours. That's right. I'm going to let that shit for 24 hours. I don't pretend it didn't hurt. I don't shove it down and act like I'm above it. I'm a man. I let it seep in for just a minute. And if it stung, it stung. I'll own it. His comment stung because I knew I hadn't been working out. But here's taking the rule further. In those 24 hours, you don't make any decisions. You don't fire back. You don't post about it. You don't call them out. You don't quit your job. You don't stop working out. You don't end the friendship or spiral into a 3-day safe hatred marathon or go on a bender like I normally would have. You sit in it. You know, that's what you do. And there was a little truth to what he said, you know, and so that helps motivate me to freaking get my ass and go back to the gym. So for you, when you're trying to figure things out and you're in that 24-hour reassessment thing, you know, take your ass to the gym. Take your dogs for a walk. Go do something you enjoy. Live your life and let the emotions run their course. Because here's what happens. That initial hit, that's not wisdom. That's your nervous system reacting to a perceived threat. Your brain is flooding you with the same chemicals it would release if you were physically in danger. And you're not thinking clearly in that moment. You're in survival mode. So slow down and just wait. And here's the part no one talks about. After 24 hours, most of the time, the thing that you were so upset about, it goes away. What felt like a 5-alarm fire at 2 p.m. on Tuesday becomes a small inconvenience by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, after your brain has a chance to process it. The chemicals settle, and you can finally look at it with the clear eyes. And then, and only then, you decide, is there anything useful here? Or am I throwing this shit in the trash? Most of the time, my friend, it'll most likely go in the trash. So now let's get to the real work, because filtering out bad opinions of others and processing criticism is just defense. And defense alone will not build a life. You need something a little bit stronger. You need internal validation. And here's what I mean. Most men walk through the world holding out a cup, hoping someone will fill it. Please tell me I'm doing a good job. Please tell me that I look sexy. Please tell me I matter. Please tell me I'm enough. And the terrifying thing about living this way is that you're always one negative comment away from feeling freaking empty. And I know because I've lived it. You know, that, you know, being a Marine Corps, you know, being a Marine, this high performer, when I got out and that aspect of my life was over, I lost that one thing that was telling me that I mattered. The uniform, the title, the respect. You know, when that was gone, what was left? A man who didn't know who he was without that kind of validation. And that's what's the boring mornings are all about. That's where you rebuild yourself, you know. It's not finding a new career. It's not the reputation. It's what I call my evidence file. You know, every 3:30 alarm clock that goes off and I answer, every walk that I take when no one's watching, every time I put in an honest day's work or do the things I say I would do and I show up. And for me, every day that I stay sober and don't use when no one's paying attention, that's the evidence accumulating. That quiet stack of kept promises is what keeps my cup from the inside filled. And when you have that, my friend, something shifts. Someone says, what happened to you? Instead of being all butthurt about it, you can either choose to respond and, and do that or move on, but your whole day is not ruined by it. You know, I had to rebuild myself from the ground up. And one person's opinion doesn't add to or subtract from that fact of the confidence I've built. And that's not arrogance. That's not being closed off. That's not being unable to take feedback. That's knowing who you are so clearly that someone else's confusion about you doesn't become confusion about yourself. So let me bring this back to where we started. That moment when someone's words hit you and you start to feel it and it starts penetrating you, and that's going to happen It happens to all of us. It still happens to me. But what's different now is when it lands, I don't hand them that pen and I don't let them start writing the chapters in a book that belongs to me. So your life, your story, your sense of who you are, all those things, that belongs to you. And you're the only person who gets a vote, or you're the only person who gets to decide the other ones who get a vote, which should be the ones that have earned it. The ones who know you, who want what you want, who give you feedback you can actually use, and everybody else, say FOF. You are fresh out of bucks. That's just noise. It's just static on a station you don't listen to anymore. So here's your challenge for the week, my friend. This week, when someone's opinion tries to move in and set up camp in your head, run that filter, turn that filter on, and give it 24 hours. And check the mirror. Is this their voice, or is it your voice wearing their face? And if it didn't pass, let it go. So, my friends, do me a favor. Drop one thing in the comments that resonates with you, not your whole life story, just something that simply resonates with you. When's the last time someone said something about you that maybe wasn't necessarily true, but it sure freaking ate your Wheaties for the day? Don't let the opinion of other people control you, okay? That's what the premise for the week is. All right, so, we talk about this every week too, about subscribing. I ain't gonna beg you to do it, but here's the honest math. Every time you subscribe, you get one of these incredible messages at the beginning of the week, which will help point you in the right direction instead of losing another hour or two lost to your phone with nothing to show for it. That's the trade. Take it or you don't. Love having you guys here. Look forward to seeing you next week. You know who I am. I'm Ken. This is Diaries of Masculine Men, where we all come together, a community of men, to freaking learn how to be the best versions of ourselves. No victim mentalities, no excuses, just hard work. See you next week.